If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not.
All right there, everyone. Welcome to Astronaut Bootcamp. Oop, hello. My monitor mode is on. Sorry for that. Right there, everyone. Welcome to Astronaut Bootcamp. So we're going to get started with the Gemini capsule today. Hope you're excited to fly something just a little bit more complicated. It's not too complicated. It's not bad. So I think we're just gonna stall for a couple more minutes. I'm gonna stop the clock here because there's gonna be a lot to talk about. We'll sit here for just a few more minutes and then we'll roll in. So while we're waiting, why won't I go and get some nice guitar music. From the audio library. Well, that's not guitar. That's the Joseph Suk Serenade. But I think, is this it? Yes, but this one's better. There we go. Some nice music while waiting for some people to show up. welcome, welcome. We're gonna be starting in a few minutes. From now on, I'm gonna make like community posts of when I go live, because for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but my live stream notifications aren't going out to people, but I know for a fact that community posts are, so I'm gonna do that from now on. Yeah, did you join via the stream notification or the community post? Which one? Which one did you actually get? Stream notification. Okay, that's great. Yeah, like I know you were saying you were having notification issues with the streams going up, so... Honestly, I gotta say, this YouTube selection of royalty-free music is kind of growing on me. It's not bad. This reminds me of like Dwarf Fortress music, to be honest. It's free on the website. I don't know if they took it off the website and to put it up on a Steam store, but I got it for free back when it was just on their website. But I think we're gonna get started now. I hope the one on Steam has a better tutorial and quality of life stuff. That's what I hope for. I'll take a look at it. Alright, let's get started. So we are in the Gemini today, and we are cold and dark, and I figured we would just go over all the systems today. So we'll grab out our trusty dusty checklist, and we're going to turn the lights on. So that's step 1. Cabin lights on. And we're just going to turn it all the way up for you guys. And then we're going to go through the systems. So let's actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do this. And I know I don't normally do this, but it just makes it easier to follow along. So we've got here the first 2 things that we see is our secondary O2 bottle shutoff. You can open and close it. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's just the secondary breathing air. We do have ourselves an abort handle. This is for mode 2 aborts. So you go to shutdown and then abort, and that's how you ditch. Moving on, we've got the coax control. So this whole top row is all radio stuff. Coax control. You've got your UHF transceiver and audio, your relay mode, your Vox tone. Vox, of course, is voice-operated transmission. You've got your television circuit breaker, high-frequency transceiver, antenna control, and then your whip antennas, HF, UHF, and the diplex, or I think that should actually say duplex antenna. So all that's comm stuff, and you guys already know I'm not all hip on the comm stuff, so don't ask me what specifically like a duplex is and stuff. I only know it in terms of cabled, not wireless. This is our electric timer right here. It's the mission timer, and then this is the event timer right here. The next things are our boost cutoff. This is the procedures, or the system which takes certain actions after the stage 2 of the Titan has cut off. And then of course we have our retro fuses, our auto retro, which is this one, and then our manual retro, which is that one. TR256, that's time down to retro 256 seconds, or 4 minutes and 16 seconds. It's what controls everything from indicate retro attitude all the way down to separate adapter. And actually beyond. It controls the whole stack from indicate retro attitude all the way down. It's just when you get to 4 minutes and 16 seconds, these specific lights will pop up, so that's how I know it as. Environmental control system indicator lights, that's going to be these lights up here, and then these lights over here. We've got the indicator light test, which allows us to do this. Sequence lights, we've got the power and the control. So the power will make these lights light up. The control will allow you to push the button. Parachute control, that's these guys right here. That's pretty self-explanatory. Then we've got our attitude indicator control for retro attitude and landing attitude. Here we've got indicate retro attitude and then landing attitude. So those will make those two buttons do stuff. We've got our boost insert control. Again, relates to stage 2 cutoff. And our retro sequence controls. And our landing sequence controls. So all this is pretty self-explanatory with what it does here. Got our sequence lights. I actually like them on dim better. Attitude indicator with flight director indicator or without. With turns the ball on with the needles. Without turns the ball on without the needles. You're always going to have this on, to be honest. Up next is the overhead panel. So we've got our coolant pumps, primary and secondary. They're actually, in the Apollo, they're called the glycol pumps, but they're the same thing. It's the coolant that runs through the radiators. Very self-explanatory there. Cryo quantity fuse. That's this gauge right here. Pretty self-explanatory again. Our aux receiver. And our beacons. Again, this is audio stuff. However, this is more like transponder related stuff. Our beacon is picked up by the ground. We've got our DC to DC converter, so high volt to low volt. Without the DC-DC converter, you'll get no readout on these gauges. So you can see how they're all full scale high right now. That's because these gauges are actually fail in the 100% position. So the more power you put to the gauge, actually the further down it goes, which is a little interesting on Gemini, but yeah, it is what it is. It's just a design choice, if you will. Our 2 suit fans, those are self-explanatory. Again, all of this is circuit breakers, so it's not actually doing anything. We're just allowing things to happen. We've got the clock light. We've got the primary O2 heater. This one actually does directly turn on the primary O2 system heater. So actually, I lied. These two and this one actually, all these three directly turn something on. So, and possibly even evap heater. Let me look over here. Yes, okay. All four of these directly turn something on. Here's our transmitters. So we've got our standby control and our standby power. So standby transmitter, that's just a fancy word for auxiliary. And then we've got our real-time transmitter and our delayed time transmitter. This one is our O2 rate control, so we can go between high rate or low rate with this switch and this cocking handle. We've got our coolant valve controls, primary and secondary. Again, self-explanatory. Evaporator heater, that's sort of the sublimator, which goes to the radiators. So sublimative cooling process out of the radiators. We've got our attitude control and maneuvering electronics. That one's also fairly self-explanatory. It's this guy right here. Acme, you can set it to, basically this controls how the RCS is reacting as opposed to the RCS directly. So that's what that does. Now ohms control, this sets up the control power, and this directly goes to your hand controller controlling your attitude. RCS squibs, that allows us to press this button. And now we've got the actual individual thrusters we can turn on. We've got the maneuver thrusters for translation, then our attitude thrusters for rotation, and then we've got the reaction control system, rotation as well, pitch and yaw, and then RCS roll can either be tied to pitch jets or yaw jets. We'll tie it to yaw jets. Now we're going to take our TMAC on. And now you'll see right when we turn our DC-DC converter on to primary, there go our gauges. Whoop. So all those gauges, we can see we've conditioned down to 0 volts now. We can actually do readouts. Acme bias power to primary. Attitude drivers, primary. Again, more maneuvering stuff. Acme bias is for this guy. Attitude drivers is part of this assembly here. We've got our evap max flow. So max flow through the evaporator. Radio keying. This is continuous intercom push to talk. And then this is just push to talk, and this is Vox. So here, continuous intercom push to talk means that we're continuously transmitting to the intercom, but we are push to talk with Houston. Record is going to go to continuous. C-band will go to continuous. And then calibrator to number 1. Standby TM to real time. This is transmitter. And then transmit on real time and acquire. Antenna select will be re-entry just in case of abort. And we'll power up the platform by going to free. And then we'll get our rate gyros spun up. And then our aux tape on. This controls the program loads. And set battery to C. So we've got up through the left-hand panel and the top panel. And now we'll just go over here. So the aux tape, as I said, stores a program. SEO instrumentation, or actually that's SEQ, that's a typo. Sequence instrumentation, calibrator, biomedical instruments. DCS, this is digital control system. It's how we receive our uplinks. Our fuel cell regulators and heaters. And then our horizon scanner heater. So biomedical instrumentation, that's obvious. Calibrators for the radio. Sequence instruments, I don't actually remember what that one does, to be honest. I've never had to use it past turning it on. Fuel cell regulator and heaters, that's to keep the fuel cell flow going and the fuel cell heated up. And then the horizon scanner is going to torque the ball to the horizon attitude. Radar power, it's for acquisition of the Agena target vehicle. Acme inverter, so that's the attitude control and maneuvering electronics inverter. This will control, or this will put DC power to AC power and power the Acme with the AC power. And we can tap out from the inertial guidance system or the attitude control and maneuvering electronics AC bus to power up the panel AC consumers, like different gauges and the computer. RCS heaters, that's pretty obvious. Tape recorder, again, pretty obvious. And fuel cell control. That's going to allow us to use these switches over here. That's pretty much it, though. And our fuel cell delta pressure, that's going to power up this gauge right here, which it should be powered off right now, actually. So I'll have to make a bug report for that. Agena control, I don't think we're going to dock with Agena. We might actually just blow through Gemini in one day, to be honest, but I feel like digestible is better. Digestible is better. Digestible is better. Let's not do this for 4 hours because no one's going to pay attention then. We'll keep it an hour tops. So just ignore these for now. I'll explain them later. Attitude indicator, again, without turns the ball on, but not the needles. With turns the ball and the needles on. AC power, we're going to go to Acme. So we're tapping to the bus. We're not supplying this bus with power. We're tapping from that bus for our panel consumers that use AC, such as the computer. Biomedical recorder controls, and the rest of it is off. So RCS heater, that's obvious. This is the actual direct control switch for the RCS heaters. These are the fuses for the heaters. And then bus tie, you should never have to touch these. These, if I recall correctly, will tie the squib batteries to the main bus. So never, ever, ever, ever in a million years touch those. Fuel cells to warm up. Right, any questions so far? I know I went through that a little bit fast, going through the systems today. So any questions on anything so far? You just want to have a look over the paneling real quick. Here's our left panel. Any questions here? Yeah, GTA switch I don't think is ever going to get fixed, to be honest. It's been broken for 6 years. So, yeah, I don't know about that one. Okay, no questions here. All right, upper panel, any questions here? Here, and I'll even, what I'll do is I'll do that so that you can see what all the text says. This is propellant, and then these are the regulators. Any questions here on this panel? Oh yeah, ohms, orbital and attitude maneuvering system. Probably should have said that one. Ohms reservoir allows you to basically, the switch should allow you to dump all of your ohms fuel. I don't think this was before Gemini 8. I think this was added after Gemini 8, but I'll have to double check that. But that's going to fire off your, or actually this might be, hold on, is that the reserve ohms or is it the reservoir? I think that might fire off the entire reservoir. But it could also be the reserve. Again, it's one of those things I've never had to use personally. I'm kind of afraid to touch it. Yeah. Okay, quantity is still good, so I think that's just the reserve fuel. Good to know. So no questions on this one. All right, I'll go to the right panel. Any questions on this panel? Minus everything from Agena control down here on the right. We'll talk about that a different time. But any questions with any of this stuff? So also looking like that is gonna be a no, but feel free to type up your questions at any point in time. I know where each and every switch is, so it's not something where I'll be like, okay, you can only ask a question while I'm doing it. Feel free to ask whenever. At this point, I think we'll truck on to the battery test. So again, the spacecraft is powered up using fuel cells. However, we do separate, exactly like Apollo, from the fuel cells, so we need entry batteries. And that's what these are for. I'll talk about how fuel cells work when we get to the fuel cell section, because they're the brand new pieces of technology, and so I think I'm actually going to have to bust out MS Paint for this one. So we're gonna, oh, well, we are actually gonna get to the fuel cell check at T-minus 45, which is right after battery check. So we'll do battery check now so that I have the time to go through what the fuel cells do. So we'll go and scroll to the battery test, BT. Remember, everything in white is DC via batteries. Everything in black is DC via cells. Each fuel cell section has 3 fuel cell. Each fuel cell section, or stack, has 3 individual fuel cells. So 1 ABC, 2 ABC. This is the DC coming out of each, and this is the DC coming out of your batteries. So go to battery test bus. Take battery 1 to BT. You have to do this one at a time or you're not going to be able to measure anything. Make sure that that's good volts. Good volts. Should be 24 volts. Yep. 24 or greater, and all of that is good. So down position is test. middle is off, up is on. And you can go back to the isolated C. Now we'll talk about how fuel cells work. So yippee, let me bust out MS Paint. Right. Let me know if you can see that, or if it's just a black screen. Oh, and it looks like it is just the black screen. Okay. Rough. Then I'll tell you what. I don't know why that's not working, actually. Alt screen, window capture. Let's see, I think it's, again, going to be the same issue. Yep, okay. I do have the perfect backup for this scenario, so give me 2 seconds. Paint.net, coming in clutch. Yeah, get the fuck out of here. There we go. Paint.net. Welcome to Paint.net. So, fuel cells. How do they work? Let's give us a nice square. So, fuel cells are a really brilliant piece of technology. Amazing. Yes. So enter that down, and then we're gonna just put in a little one here, like that, a little one here, like that, and a little one here, like that. Kind of, you get the picture. And then there's like a pipe coming off this way, and a pipe coming off this way, and then flows through here is like this way, and like this way. Another pipe here, and another pipe here, and flow comes this way, and flow goes this way. Okay, so how does a fuel cell work, right? So how many of you have heard of electrolysis before, right? Electrolysis, you've got your H2O, and you've got a ton of H2O, right? Absolute massive H2O. Okay, so how electrolysis works is you have at least 2 H2O, anything divisible by 2, so 2 H2O, 2 of these guys. And so we can actually just represent that by doing that. So you got 2 H2O, And what electrolysis is going to do is it's going to go like this. You add electricity, so you go 2H2O plus E minus, that's electron. However many electrons, we'll just call that Xe minus for however many electrons it takes. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to do 2H2, and all that's equal to 2H2 plus O2. Right? So you add the electron in, and bam! You get pure hydrogen gas and pure oxygen gas, right? So what does a fuel cell do? It performs hydrolysis, the exact opposite of electrolysis. So if you get an electron in through hydrolysis, if you get an electron in doing electrolysis, what should you get back out when you perform hydrolysis? Any question or any answers? Any genius chemists in here who know equivocal exchange? Conservation of energy. If you have to put an electron in to split hydrogen and oxygen, what do you have to get out to fuse hydrogen and oxygen? If you put an electron in, you always have to get an electron out, right? So this is how a fuel cell works. You've got your H2, and you've got your O2. Right? And they're all flowing in here very nicely. So what does a fuel cell do? Well, in this section here, we've got ourselves solid color, and let's go, let's get our color wheel up. Let's go orange. This right here is our catalyst. So orange is our catalyst. Yep, orange is the catalyst. Red is going to be the cathode. Green is going to be the anode. And then these guys are just sort of, oops, back to black. These guys are sort of hooked up like this, and then it goes off to whatever bus. We'll just label that as a resistor, like so. Because an entire power bus is technically a resistor, because the bus increases the resistance, it's just a way to dump energy. So yeah, you have your H2 and you have your O2. So O2 over here is extremely electronegative, right? And H2 over here is also on the more electronegative side. So this is why we have a catalyst here. because what this is going to do is this here is kind of extremely electropositive. So the electronegative hydrogen here is going to be like, ooh, all right, semi-permeable. Okay, semi-permeable, first of all. So oxygen can't flow through. It's a bigger molecule than hydrogen. Hydrogen smaller than oxygen, so it can flow through. Semi-permeable catalyst, that's what this is. So hydrogen is like, ooh, that plus is looking real tasty, real fine. So it's going to come in and it's going to go into the catalyst. All right? Now what that's going to do is it's going to split up into H2 plus. Why plus? Okay? Why plus? Because if we take H2 minus 2E minus, all we're doing is we're pulling this catalyst, strips the hydrogen of its valence electron, of its free electron. So now the hydrogen has become ionized. And because it lost negative energy potential, it now becomes electropositive, hence the plus. So we've got a H2 plus, and we've got 2 electrons. Now those electrons are going to be like, ooh, a cathode. So it's going to go into the cathode, and then the electrons are going to come up like a battery, exactly like a battery. It's going to go whiz around, power everything it needs to power, so the electrons are flowing directly, and it comes out into the anode. The electrons come out into the anode, and they're sort of in here now, and you know, they're negative electricity, or negative electro, or they're negative electric, like they're electronegative, and so they're repulsed. They're absolutely disgusted by this presence of oxygen here, because oxygen is also extremely electronegative. So the valence electron is never going to bind with oxygen. And now the hydrogen over here is going to be like, wow, there is O2 plus 2 electrons. This is really electronegative. So that electropositive hydrogen ion now is going to be like, wow, this is looking really tasty over here. So it's going to come over here and it's going to have a snack, right? So we've got our H plus, our H2 plus, and it's coming over here, and it can't bond with the oxygen because it's lost its valence electrons, so it can't bond. But luckily for it, 2 free-floating electrons have now entered because of the anode. So they're like, wow, electron and hydrogen are like, wow, you are looking mighty fine. Let's get together and let's get married. So now we have 2 unionized hydrogen, right? So hydrogen is no longer a cation or a cation, depending on where you're from, and now it is just standard everyday hydrogen. But that's okay, because you know what? There were actually 4 4 H2s chilling there. Now, so there's more H2 after that whole reaction repeats itself. And now look at that, we get 4 very standard hydrogen, but you know what? Oxygen is slightly, well, it's not slightly, it's a lot more electronegative than hydrogen. And you know what? Oxygen is attracted to the standard. So oxygen's going to come up over here, and it's going to be like, okay, the O2 family is going to get together with the H2s, and now we've got 2 H2O. And that is how a fuel cell works. Oh yeah, forgot to mention, there is a water drain line over here. So water is going to exit the drain line through this way, and the excess oxygen, because not all the oxygen gets used up, is going to come out here. Excess hydrogen is going to come out here. Oh, sorry, other way. The flows go in different directions. There, like that. So there's your fuel cells. Any questions? So yeah, fuel cells, they create water, but because you need to add electricity to create hydrogen and oxygen gas, when you create water, you pull electricity out, you pull electrons out. The problem is that you can't combust. I mean, this is technically a combustion reaction because you're adding oxygen, but it's really not. It's actually hydrolysis, not combustion, because if you combust, you don't get any electrons out. You're left with shit, just water, and might I add, terrible tasting water because it's been lit on fire. So, yeah, hydrolysis, only way you can make electricity directly. You can, of course, get electricity out of a combustion reaction, of course, because, again, you have to put electricity into making hydrogen gas and oxygen gas, so you have to get electricity out, no matter if you combust those to get water or you hydrolyze to get water, you still have to get electricity out. It's just that when you hydrolyze, you get direct electrons, and when you combust, you get heat. And heat needs to be converted into electrons through an AC generator. You can't make DC with heat. Well, actually you can, but that's a story for another time. That is a story for another time. You can't directly make DC with heat. It's got to be AC as a least complicated process. Thermocouples, the physics behind that, I don't want to get into that right now. That's college level physics, so fuck off with that. So yeah, that's how a fuel cell works. I hope that explanation helped. Does the H2 purge actually work? Well, we would be able to test the O2 and H2 purge if this gauge actually behaved like it would in real life. However, it does not. What the purges do is they just flow a high concentration of gas through. So you get a high flow alarm, of course. And that's just because, like, there is going to be some ice or whatever. The fuel cells are heated, but it's also not 100%, 100% pure oxygen and hydrogen, because 100% pure is impossible. You get some impurities, some whatever. So when you purge the fuel cells, you get rid of all of the water moisture, all of the gas impurities, which will clog up the cell and eventually cause it to die. And that's what purging does. It extends the life of the cell by flowing a high concentration, high pressure gas through. Pretty much the same way you blow out a scuba tank, a scuba dive tank. It's the same thing. You're just blowing out all that excess moisture, all that debris and stuff. So that's what that is. And we are right on time for the fuel cell check, actually. Amazing. So to run this check, again, black is through fuel cells. You're just going to run through, turn each fuel cell on. Again, this is the heaters for the fuel cell in the middle, and then on the top, it's actually tying the fuel cell to the electrical bus. So here we're producing electrons, but they're not going anywhere. So it's all volts and no amps. This is the ammeter, this is the voltmeter. We can see very stable 24 volts, so we're good there. We can go back to C, and we can turn our sections off. How would it be, so how it would be done in Apollo? Yeah, pretty much the same, actually, except Gemini, the procedure is slightly different. There's no H2 purge line heater in Gemini that you have to be turning on or anything like that. Alright, squibs and abort check. So, what do the squibs do? The squibs are responsible for controlling the sequencing of the rocket. Staging, abort, anything that's a irrevocable action. This entire panel's controlled with the squibs minus indicate retro attitude. As well, squib batteries 1 and 2, believe it or not, they actually run the ohms controller, so that if the fuel cells die, you still have attitude control. So the squibs run the ohms control power. So that's what those do, and the test for them is pretty simple, actually. You take the 3 to off, so you should see 0 on battery C, and you go to S1, and it should say 0, and you go 3 to umbilical. That keeps them fully charged. We can see we've got nice greater than 24 volts. And now we take squibs 1 and 2 off, and that should drop to 0 volts. We go to S2, and it should also say 0 volts. And now we take the first 2 to umbilical. And there we go. And now battery C. And that should be drawn from any of the squibs, as you can see. When we turn them off, they keep powered. Doesn't matter, but again, at least one needs to go to the C bus. So once you've done that, you can come over here and request your abort squibs check. And what you should see is the abort light come on, and a little dip in the volts as the abort light is active. And the abort light out, and you should see just a tiny rise back in the volts. Pretty much it. Super easy, and now we can go down to 15 minutes full internal power. Any questions so far? I'm glad you liked my explanation of the fuel cells. I'm happy it kept you entertained. So what I've done there is I've just purged some CO2 out of the suit loop by pulling this handle, and it's what actually, this handle is what isolates the suit loop from the cabin loop. So when you pull this handle, you put the suit loop on the cabin loop, and that's going to scrub out the oxygen, because apparently the O2 scrubbers are only on the cabin circulatory loop for whatever reason. I don't know if that's true to real life or not. I don't think it is, though. So, if no further questions, and yes, it is absolutely all about having fun. And honestly, I hope Reb comes back to Gemini at some point after I post these videos and see if he does a little better. Because he does pretty good at everything right up to the entry part. And so actually I was going to make entry its own separate thing. Okay, full internal power. We'll just bring her down one more minute. There we go. So full internal power. Gemini's view bindings are weird, if you excuse me. Very simple. You're just going to take your main batteries on, squib batteries to on, and then get your fuel cells powered up. So again, you turn the fuel cells on, and then you tie them to the DC bus. There's all the 1 cells tied and all the 2 cells tied. Again, each big fuel cell containment has 3 smaller fuel cells. The individual fuel cells are actually pretty small. Yeah, he does like stop at the EVA and then immediately leave pretty much afterwards. Haven't seen him do a docking, haven't seen him do an entry, so I hope these help. And you can even see, look at that, battery power light does come on, like it is supposed to. Now at T-minus 5 minutes, and since we're on internal power, I'm actually going to do this now because it's not going to kill us. We can get the computer on, and the manual display, or manual data insertion unit, or MDIU. And that's going to go through its own data checks. Yeah, I've never seen that before. I think that was just a one-off thing, because seriously, I've never seen it before. Aux tape is on. Boost insert squib to arm. Retro squibs, just in case we need to do a mode 3 abort. Retro squibs to arm. And then we'll need the coolant pumps. On, and now you can see, look at that, temperature comes right down. And so this is actually indicative of the actual temperature at this point, because the average temperature in the line, as you know, in order for temperatures read out by thermocouples to be accurate, they need to have flow. Otherwise, that one section is just going to heat up, and then it's gonna, it's gonna show you something that's wrong. So when you establish the flow, you see an immediate drop because what's directly before the thermocouple is colder than what's directly after it. So once it gets flowing, it's gonna cool off really fast and then really slow. Radiators maintain bypass, suit fans to 1 and 2. Platform is free. And now scanner goes to primary. Got our D-ring, and now we do the alignment of the onboard computer. Click. Or of the platform using the pre-launch program. And we can see it's getting aligned pretty good. Oh yeah, it's a little toasty. We don't have the radiators on, so the evaporator is not working. It's the sublimative process doesn't work unless you're in space because it relies on a pressure differential. So no way to reject our heat. That's why Apollo has the cooling ground support equipment right up to like, I think they activate the internal equipment at like 2 or so hours to the launch. I can't exactly remember, but we'll get to it eventually, and I'll have refreshed my memory then. Now we go to Ascent, but do not start. Attitude control, we'll go to Rate Command. These are new. We didn't have these in Mercury, so I will be talking about those. And then we open all of these in case we need to abort. We can just flip, just one switch. MDIU 72. Radio check. And now we're pretty much good. That's everything set up for the launch. Any questions on any systems related items? Again, as we interact with the systems more, I'll talk about them more, but this is just sort of a brief overview. How do I feel about the changes made to the computer? Honestly, I didn't notice any changes. It still looks the same to me. I know Core 19 is now in minutes and seconds, if I remember correctly. That's 24... Oh, actually, that... 2 hours, 40 minutes? Or 240 minutes. It might be 240 minutes. I'll have to look over that again. But yeah, we can go full internal power at this point. And we can see the rise in our amps. There we go. Yeah, don't know how Core 19 is. But I'll look at it eventually. I'm not going to go over the computer stuff until we need it. There's things for like setting your insertion target orbit and stuff like that. Setting your roll program, inclination, azimuth, yaw on ascent, stuff like that. I'm not gonna touch it, because you're not gonna use any of this stuff. I won't touch it until we need to. I think we'll actually do the launch this stream. Why the hell not? Let's go for it.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff. Roger, talk to me. Yes, that's right. We got a roll program. Roger, roll. Good liftoff, 8.
There you go, a little treat for sitting here listening to me for an hour, so
Roger, pitch program.
we'll just go through the launch. Yeah, no one talks about it. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about it a little bit, but honestly, I don't know much about it outside of what I interface with it for. So I know it's a ferrite core backed with aux tape. So I know the RAM is ferrite core, the ROM is the magnetic reel-to-reel tape. I know how to interface with it, and I know how to use it to rendezvous and do burns. I am not very educated on how you would program the Ascent stuff into it. I don't think the astronauts even programmed the Ascent stuff into it. I think that was done by the ground crew. So I'm not going to touch those things. I'm only going to touch what you would normally touch. I mean, unless you wanted to make your own mission with a different inclination, but at that point, you could figure it out yourself. The battery power light works now. Well, it worked before. It was just that it would only work before if the TR-256 condition was met. Do we have any documentation on the computer? We don't have a program listing for the onboard computer. All that is available for the OBC is just the flow path. That's it. There's no available program, just a flow path. So how it is in reentry is...
Roger, staging.
How it is in reentry is, you know, as realistic as it can possibly be, because it was just made from the flow path. There's no actual program available, so... Unfortunate. Yeah, to be honest, there's not an incredible amount of documentation on anything from the McDouglas Corporation, the McDonnell Douglas Corporation from back in this time, so yeah, like the airplanes have their documentation, but like Mercury has a little bit. But like there's no documentation on how like the computer in Mercury works. I mean, there is a computer in Mercury, the capsule, but of course it's not interfaceable to the astronaut. There's no interface to it, but there is a small computer. Most of the stuff's controlled with the clock, but there's a computer in there. No documentation on exactly how that works or any programs for that or anything, so there's lots of documentation about the capsules themselves and not really much about what's inside the capsules. Everything not Apollo no one cares about. Well, there's a lot of documentation on the space shuttle. I don't know if the original program is available, but there's a lot of documentation about the space shuttle. Okay, stand by for shutdown.
Roger, Seco.
Okay, so at this point, separate spacecraft. Jettison fairings. There also, this entire front section is supposed to have a fairing on it. I don't know why it doesn't anymore. But there's also the side section fairing for this Omni antenna. And then, actually, the insertion happened perfectly. Normally, there's some IVIs you have to zero out. To do that, you just flip the switch on. I, K, J, L, H, and N. You can see it'll be like something like this, and you'll be like, okay, I just need to thrust a little bit aft, and there you go. You zero those out, and that's it. We'll talk about the insertion and stuff another time. Actually, I guess insertion's part of the systems checklist. We could do it now. Insertion. Okay, so it does exist, yeah. So boost insert squibs to off. Retro racket squibs off. Sequence light test. Looks good. Left O2 bottle, close. Attitude indicator circuit breaker, we already have that closed, makes the ball glow for us. We need the ohms heater and water heater on now, and those are on. Acme bias power is primary, roll jets is already yaw. Attitude drivers is primary, suit fan 1 and 2, primary pumps are on. We can go evaporator flow, we could leave it on max flow actually. Antenna select to adapter. Now that we are good, we'll use the antennas in here, which are not actually modeled. The Gemini has these big compartments that'll open up, and some yellow stuff will stick out here, and they have antennas, but they're not modeled here. I can actually show you. Here. These guys right here, see that yellow stuff up at the front? That's the antenna we're talking about that deploys after launch. That's part of the jettison fairings. Those will stick out. By the way, that was a painting I did. Cryo quantity off, record switch off, or sorry, record switch off. Main batteries we could take off now, but we leave the squib batteries on. AC power goes to inertial guidance system, so off of Acme to IGS now. Computer is going to reboot. That's fine. Right O2 bottle, close. Voltimeter is on C. Ohms control power off, so all this off. We can see our horizon scanner did acquire, so this attitude did update. Very nice. Now we can use this, take it to SCF, BEF, all that stuff. And on free, so we cage and we go to free, and now it's just free spinning. We can slew it to BEF, orbit rate, or SCF. I personally like SCF. But we'll leave it on free for now. Computer is going to go to catch up, and we'll see, look at this. The aux tape light comes on. When this light turns off, the program is ready. And then after 30 minutes, Rebel's been asking when 1.0 is... 1.0 is not coming out for a long time. For a long, long time. Space Shuttle's not going to be in here. My wager is another year or two, honestly. It's not going to come out for a long time. And part of that is there's a lot of little finicky shit that needs to get fixed. And anytime some finicky shit gets fixed, some other finicky shit breaks. So, and then there's also some quality of life stuff that needs to get improved. Checklists need to get run over. OBC gets updates, things like that. Everything needs to get flushed out in Apollo, because Apollo is, okay, that needs a lot of flushing out, to be honest. It's good. It is good. Oh, by the way, you can see now that we turn the batteries off, fuel cells have run up. If we take AC to Acme, okay, it's the same DC usage. Not saying Apollo's bad. It's good. For re-entry, it's good. But it needs a lot of work, and someone needs to comb through, and I personally might volunteer my services. If someone really just needs to comb through for the nitpicky shit, like the Squib Batteries 4, it should be Squib Batteries 3, the English on the texts for the campaigns needs a lot of work. The training English needs a lot of work. Just a lot of little finicky shit. And when the bugs are squashed, you know, classic story. We have a song in computer science called 99 Bugs on the Wall. 99 bugs. You take one down, you patch it around. 125 bugs on the wall. And that's what it is. That's really what it is. So what it is when you fix a bug, 100 other bugs come up. It's really fucking annoying, you know, and like, look, this got fixed before, but it's back. Earth is back to being so ridiculously bright. It's actually crazy. So it's all that nitpicky shit that needs to get fixed. And so that's part of it. That's part one. Also part of part one is that, well, actually we say part two is people are expecting a lot out of 1.0. You can't get cold and dark done accurately. No way, Jose. Not enough, you can't do it accurately. Cold and dark, all those circuit breakers were pushed in days in advance, so cold and dark can't get done accurately. But that's excusable. It's time crunched down. I'm fine with how cold and dark is at the moment. There are some systems that need to be implemented in Apollo. So yeah, number two is people are expecting a lot, right? They're expecting a lot. We've seen the space shuttle, we've seen the multiplayer, we've seen the Skylab. One of those big features should be ready shortly after 1.0. Because he teased it and it's gonna hit the Steam store as fully released, one of those features needs to be ready for the second sprint here going. We've got our MVP, it's great. One of those features needs to be close to done by 1.0 release or released with 1.0. Just as a logical sort of project manager, because I'm a trained project manager, that is just what would make sense. From a marketing standpoint, one of those features needs to be ready either shortly after 1.0, where you wrap it up and you say, okay, everything that's in the game before 1.0 is fixed, it's ready, all the systems are implemented that I want to be implemented with 1.0, and you push it out. And then shortly after, you go into the beta for the multiplayer, or for the Skylab, or for the space shuttle, so one of those needs to get done. The third thing is also a little bit of character. Shuttle is not going to be the feature I would suggest to be implemented or ready to implement by that 1.0, I'm actually going to suggest it would be the multiplayer. Space Shuttle, too big to be 1.0. That's going to be like in development for 1.0, fully released 2.0 kind of thing. Space Shuttle's too big to be ready by then. Multiplayer would be what I would go with personally. And then Skylab, and then Space Shuttle last. But the third part is also character. Petrie is, he's talked about it before on his videos. He's very, when he started out, he took a very fast approach. The numbers were going, they were counting up all the way to 99. And now that he's at the point where he's 1.0, he himself, in his mind and his character, is not ready to release 1.0 because he's a perfectionist, and I know with a lot of the visual things and the systems implementations you may not think so, but you have to remember this is a one-man dev team with a few quality control people, and that's it. So a few testers, but aside from that, it's one dev. So it's also part of character. It's also part of being emotionally ready to say that the product you're putting out is final worthy. That if you were to die after 1.0 and nothing ever happened again, you would be happy with what was put out as a final product. And so as those three things, why I would say we're not going to be ready for maybe another year or two. Just my personal opinion. I don't know. It could be like 1.0 is a 2025 birthday gift. I don't know, but I don't think it's going to be ready until 2025 or 2026. That's my personal opinion. Anyways, I basically talked through the entire radiator check. So now that we're at 30 minutes, we can request the radiator temp check. And we could say, oh, look at that. Our inlet temperature, or our outlet temperature is good, that is. So we could take the evaporator or the sublimator, depending on, you know, which craft you're familiar with, but they're the same thing. Back to normal, and then radiators to flow. And now we'll begin the process of actually cooling the fuck down. So that's about it. That's our insertion checks. And so we're done. Yeah, a lot of stuff will be smoothed out by 1.0, and that's why 1.0 is taking so long, because there's a lot of like, you know, Peter will be the first to admit it. He ran in and he implemented feature after feature after feature after feature after feature. Everyone loved it, and then now we're getting to the point where all the weird things need to get fixed. So it's gonna take a while. It will happen eventually. It's just gonna take a while. Peachy's doing the best he can. One-man dev team. That's why I'm like, I might offer to just help with the English, make sure the transcripts are right, the text, because to take a burden off him. Because this is the little things like Squid Batteries 4 instead of 3 that just like, you know, if he was not a one-man show and someone was in charge of going through and reading all the text, like it would be fixed and it would be so much better for him, kind of thing. Do I think he went too fast? No, of course not. He can dev at whatever speed he wants to, as long as, so it's dev'd with Agile, right? This is not like a waterfall style project where everything needs to get perfectly implemented the first time, right? It's not an airplane, it's not a government piece of software, it's not this and that. It's a passion project, and it's an agile approach to passion project called Lean Launch. As long as at the end of the day, at the end of your script, what you have delivered has been value and is seen as value in the form of profit and net revenue, that's all that matters. That's all that matters to the Agile method. As long as the customer feedback is great and you're making money, those two things, that's it. So Agile is big on the deliver value in a timely manner, make sure the customers are happy, and make sure you're making profit. So it's what he defines his sprint goals as. And if he wants to say, I want to implement all the features first before I fix the bugs, or if he wants to do them one at a time, as long as the value proposition is fulfilled, it doesn't matter what approach you take or how fast or slow you do it. So this is just a little bit of project management training to wrap down this video as. But anyways, yeah, I'm gonna shut the fuck up now because this video is getting really long, and the longer the videos are, the less people watch them, and I really want people to get into reentry. So this will probably be the longest of the videos, hopefully, until the actual reentry. We're gonna have to talk about lift vector dynamics. Oh yes, that's gonna be fun. Yeah, so I think we're gonna cut it off here. Thanks for watching, and yeah, just thanks for watching. We're gonna finish up Gemini. We're gonna roll into Apollo, and the biggest part of Apollo is teaching people how to control the attitude of the spacecraft properly. The systems themselves are kind of the background, because a checklist will cover your ass with the systems. It's maneuvering the spacecraft properly, performing a burn properly, and also avoiding all of the game-ending bugs that are currently in. Like requesting a TLI, but not doing the TLI checklist first, and you run out of time, TLI goes over, and now your TLI calculator is broken. So that's the biggest game ending bug. But yeah, that should be all. So Apollo's going to be most of that. Like, I'll talk about the systems as they come up, but like, holy fuck, there's 1.6 thousand switches. Guys, I can't do that. I can't talk for that long. So I'll maybe, with the most requested systems, make a video, a deep dive into that system specifically. But really, no, I'll give an overview exactly how I did it with Gemini, because holy shit, 1.6 thousand touchable things, it's never going to happen. We're going to be here for years. What's a lift vector? Right, a lift vector is essentially, how do I explain it? You know when you're in an airplane, right? Drag is what's pulling the airplane backwards, right? You're thrusting forwards and you hit the air and drag pulls you back. Lift is the normal to drag. Lift is the normal to drag. So, when they put the flaps down, they increase the surface area, they make a hell of a lot more drag. And that proportionally increases the normal lift. So lift is the normal to drag. So when we're hitting the atmosphere, we're really slowing down, and the drag forces are pushing us backwards. And if you think about normal is 90 degrees to that vector point, that comes out in the whatever direction we are rolled in. Due to the angle of the heat shield. So yeah, we'll talk about that. But it's basically the normal of drag. It's what makes planes fly. It's what makes planes fly. You can't have too much drag or you'll lose all your lift, but it's sort of, there's some magic going on there. We'll talk about it. We'll do a deep dive into a lift vector. But just think of it like an airplane. What makes it want to go up is lift vector. It's the same thing. Just in space instead. So yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good night. And I'll see you all at some point. I don't know. Capstone is almost done. Almost done. 2 more days, and the project is done. 2 more weeks, and the homework is done. So, honestly, I might see you all then. Because, yeah, there's a lot of reading homework to this weekend, and I definitely got to start that. So, thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.